Have you ever been playing along to a song or maybe jamming with some friends and you pretty much got the groove down and it's feeling okay, but there's a problem. You realize you're stuck playing that exact pattern because even if you make the slightest change, you might fall apart, lose the timing, and never settle back into it. In other words, you're stuck in a rut. You can't create variations or really improvise on a kick drum pattern in a song. If you can relate to this, today's lesson is for you. Trust me, I've been there. You must avoid this frustrating scenario, otherwise you won't be able to be that free, creative, improvising drummer you know you're capable of becoming. So, let me help you get there today with a deceivingly simple exercise that totally changed the game for me years ago, and it will transform your drumming too, even if you're a total beginner. You can do this. Hey, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I help self-taught beginner drummers know what to practice so they can nail songs and become that drummer that other people want to have in their band. And hey, you can't do that without being able to be confident in whatever groove you're playing and ideally be able to improvise on it because that equals even more confidence. And so that's something I want to help you do today. Something else I want to help you with, I've got a free gift for you in the description below. I want to help you build coordination because coordination is like a superpower. It means you can play what's in your head, everything gets easier, you learn new material easier, you learn new songs faster, and you're able to improvise more easily. And so I want you to grab my totally free PDF e-guide, 30 Days to 4-Way Rock Coordination for the Beginner Drummer. This guide is so much fun, and it's so cool, you know, just moving down the list and learning new grooves you can learn in songs that are also challenging your coordination. It's okay if it takes you longer than 30 days. Usually what happens is students move through the first 10 or so pretty quickly. Then we start to introduce the left foot, which definitely throws a wrench in things, but it's so worth practicing. And so you just got to stay patient with it. But even once you get to like groove 10 or 12, what I hear from so many people is that's where they're seeing so many results already, and it's helping them like crazy at that point. They're having lots of fun. So play what's in your head, build 4-way coordination so that everything is easier on the drums. This free guide will help you do it. So be sure to go grab that. That's going to help you out alongside what we're talking about in today's lesson. So let's get on with the lesson. I'll never forget my first college percussion lesson. I decided to major in music. And so I was 18 years old. I just turned 18. I remember showing up for my first lesson. And I was majoring in percussion, but I was kind of the drum set guy. I wanted to do drum set stuff. I wanted to get better at playing jazz and further my drum set skills. But I knew I was going to be doing some percussion stuff too. And so at my first lesson, my teacher had me sit down with the kid and basically show her what I could do. Like where was I at? And I was at a place in my playing where I was trying to play faster. I was working on my chops. My thinking was if I can build my coordination and my hand speed more, then that's pretty much it. Like that should be my focus so that I can play better and faster and better and faster. And so that's where I was as an 18-year-old. And so I thought I kind of had my playing together. I knew there were things I needed to work on, but I thought, you know what? I can play a lot of notes really fast, so I'm not too bad. It's hilarious to think back on, 12, 13 years later now. So I start playing, and my teacher just has me play a basic groove. And so I'm playing along, and she's listening, and suddenly she's like, okay, hold up. Here's what I want you to do. And what she had me do over the next few minutes completely changed my drumming forever. And it taught me so much. And she told me later that she made this up on the spot. I think it's brilliant. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Realize that you are far more capable of creativity and improvisation than you thought by using this deceivingly simple and easy exercise to break out of the boring rut. Just to clarify, it's deceivingly simple and it's deceivingly easy. There's definitely some challenge here. It's very simple, but it will challenge you. When she had me do this in my lesson, I couldn't do it at first. It took so much practice to do this super simple thing I'm going to have you do. But it will get you out of the boring rut where you feel like you're playing the same boring stuff over and over. Your playing will become so much more interesting because you'll actually have more control over what you're playing and you'll be able to step out of the box and create really cool stuff. So here we go. Here's how this works. I'm just going to take you step by step. We've got a 5-step process here. This is so simple, but quality over quantity, as I'll always remind you, the point here is to make sure that things are feeling good and you're playing well before you move to the next step. Step 1. Play the money beat with your metronome at 70 beats a minute, but remove beat 3 so that it's really just kick on beat 1. Just kick on a downbeat. So we're just playing boom, get, boom. Very sparse, tons of space. One kick note per bar, and we've just got our snare backbeats and our eighth notes with the right hand. So I'm going to get my metronome queued up. You can feel free to play along with me because I'll basically be doing this exercise. So you can do it along with me. You'll see though in the end how you can actually do your own variations of this, and that's where you really will start to grow. So I'll count us off. Feel free to play along. We're going to do a few bars of this simple, really sparse money beat at 70 beats a minute. So that right there was what my percussion teacher had me do in that lesson, and I couldn't do it. Basically, I was playing all these random notes, and I was playing around the kit, and it was probably like, who knows how bad it sounded, who knows how many notes it was, but what she noticed was that my playing was super busy, but didn't actually feel right. And so she had me strip away all the fluff, all the mess, and play something super simple, and I struggled to do it. I could not relax playing so few notes. Maybe you're in the same boat where you feel like more notes is your safety net, and when you try to play less, you rush, you trip over yourself, and nothing feels right. That was me. I know how it feels, and you have to learn, you have to wean yourself off of all the notes, and not take confidence in all the notes, but instead take confidence in how well you can play something simple. So just this first step was a huge process for me, getting to where I could just play God, and be super relaxed with it. That took some time. And so the rules of this exercise are that you have to loop this over and over until it feels good. Probably not just 4 bars like I just did. You might need to go 16, 32, 64. Just set a timer and play this for 5 minutes. It goes back to what we talked about last week with the George Lawrence Stone brilliant lessons in the introduction where he talks about repetition. You've got to be able to play something over and over again without stopping, without mistakes until it feels good. And that's what's so critical here. So this is what we want to establish here in this first step. This needs to feel really good. You've got to be able to play something that's so bare bones, skeletal, simple, sparse, but play it so well that you sound like a total pro playing it. That is the critical first step. So take your time with this. Don't miss that. Now, for step number 2, we're going to add one new kick note. And again, we're going to just loop it over and over until it feels good. I'll play it 4 bars. Just for the sake of time instead of playing it for a whole 5 minutes here. But you can create your own play-along loops if you want to. If you have something like GarageBand, you can go in there in GarageBand and like create these things and then play along with them, which can be a lot of fun. But at a minimum, just get your metronome out. You're playing along to the metronome. You're listening to yourself. You're paying attention to, am I relaxed? This whole lesson today is a way to apply what we talked about last week. Those whole mindsets, ways to practice stuff from Stick Control by George Lawrence Stone. He talks about muscularly relaxed action. This is a way to practice being relaxed. Can you play this relaxed? Can you do it over and over again without stopping? Can you play it loudly? Can you play it softly and it still feel good? This is what I want you doing. And if you're doing this, you're going to grow like crazy just in the next few weeks, especially if you've never approached drumming this way before. So step 2, we're adding a new kick note. I'll play this 4 times. So just one more new kick note, because remember what we're doing is we want to get to where we're comfortable making tiny changes down here. Once you can learn to do that, the sky's the limit. So here we go. And you know the drill. Loop it over and over until it's feeling good. That second note can happen anywhere. I did mine on the and of 1, so we now have boom, boom, bop. You could put yours anywhere you want to. You can copy me or you can do your own thing. Eventually, I really want you doing your own thing. But loop it over and over again. Make sure it's relaxed. You're not rushing. You're not dragging. Be able to play it loud. Be able to play it soft. Pay attention to how you're feeling. Are your arms relaxed? Are your shoulders relaxed? If you're tense like this, stop, reevaluate, make sure you're staying relaxed. Practice just going. Practice relaxed eighth notes. Sometimes that's where the tension starts in a groove because you're tense right here, and so everything else gets tense too. And so practice relaxing that timekeeping because that's your nice steady glue that holds everything together here. Hey, at least I'm not making you take that away. At least we have our given of eighth notes. That's a nice glue that pulls everything together that we play. So now step 3, add a third kick note, and then add a fourth one, and then remove in reverse order. So that's really the rest of the steps here. What we're going to do here for steps 3, 4, and 5, I'm just going to do them in real time. So here for step 3, you're going to hear me add a third note. So there's going to be 3 kick drum notes in the groove, and then I'm going to add a fourth note, and then I'm going to remove all of them in reverse order. I'll repeat each one 4 bars, but know that in your practicing, it doesn't have to be 4 bars. It can just be however long you've got to play it over and over again until it feels good, until you feel like you have that full control and command over what your right foot is doing. As you're listening to this, as you're playing this rather, you're listening to your right foot. So yes, you're listening to this, you're paying attention to what that right foot is doing so that your hands are becoming more and more autopilot as you practice this way. So here we go for steps 3, 4, and 5. We're starting off, remember we have our groove already of, that's what we have so far. So I'm going to add a third kick drum note and then a fourth, and then we'll remove them in reverse order. So we're paying attention to what we're adding. We're being intentional and purposeful. That's huge here. Here we go. And saw on there as we finish out where we started just with our single kick drum note on beat 1. I think I might have overachieved and added in a 5th one. I think we did 1, 2, 3, no, I think there were 4 notes total because I ended up adding in that of too. Boom, boom, ba, ah. So yeah, we ended up with 4 kick drum notes total. And you can go as crazy with this as you want to, but the point is be able to keep track of what you're doing. You're intentionally adding notes. You can go in order through the groove, like you could add an and of 1, then an and of 2, and then something else later to help you keep track of it early on as you're getting the hang of this. But eventually you want to just be thinking musically and like randomly, okay, where can I add in a note over here and then here, so that it's more random. Therefore, there's more challenge with keeping up with what you're doing. But the whole thing here is you're being purposeful, intentional, and instead of playing from your hands, you're now playing from your ear. And that's really the big thing here. That's really the huge thing. Now, as a bonus, and this is actually what my percussion teacher had me do this particular day, this first lesson, she didn't just have me do this with the kick drum. I was doing this also with the snare and with the hi-hat. It was kind of wherever you want to add something new, add something new. And so at that point, it becomes limitless, and it also gets really crazy because if we're adding kick notes and we've got, well, we could also add hi-hat open notes. You know, we can add a whole bunch of ghost notes on the snare, and eventually it just gets crazy. You can't possibly keep track of what order you added everything, but you can keep layering, and then you can do the best you can to then remove them and have like 5, 7, 9, 10, 12 layers. And the whole thing just helps you so much with being purposeful. That's what I can't say enough. Being purposeful and paying attention to what you're playing and how you're sounding, because that was my huge problem in high school. And that was the big turning point here for me. It was going from just playing stuff because, okay, here comes a fill, and just not being aware of what I was playing, to suddenly, oh, now I'm actually being thoughtful. Now I'm actually thinking about my kick drum patterns. Now I'm actually thinking about what ghost notes I'm playing or not playing. That way my playing just isn't a busy mess. Everything is more thoughtful, and that was the first step in getting to where my playing sounded more musical and where my pocket was better. Your timing gets better in practicing this too, because you're learning to keep the time steady no matter how many notes you're playing. Not rushing when it's sparse, not dragging when it's busy. And so that's huge. You're learning to separate, you know, time and busyness of notes. because if you can play busily and keep the tempo the same as when you're playing sparse, you can create a feeling of speeding up and adding more energy. If you're playing something really busy, that's probably going to feel more driving and pushing without even changing the tempo, just because that's the way it is when you play a whole bunch of notes. And so if you can make these changes without changing the tempo, you can create the illusion of time changing. Hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of like I like to think of it as the drumming theory of relativity, the relationship of time and space as it applies to drums. I won't bore you with the rest of my nerdy details, but I think it's one of those really cool aspects of drumming where you can control how the tempo feels without changing the tempo just based on what you play, which is really neat. But the reason why this exercise is so powerful is it teaches you to play from your ear and not your limbs. And that's the skill that you have to tap into, that I believe you have this skill deep down inside. You just have to tap into it, because all of us have the ability to get a song stuck in our heads, right? If you can get a song stuck in your head, then you can learn to play the drums musically. You might not be able to reproduce you might not be able to sing the melody. You might feel tone deaf when you're singing. You might have a bad singing voice. I don't have a good singing voice. That doesn't matter. But if you can get a song stuck in your head and you can get music floating in your head, then you can play the drums musically. And so this whole playing from your ear skill, it's something you can tap into, even if you feel like you don't have an ear. Even if you're a total beginner, you're 50, 60 years old, and you've gone all your life not really doing music, and now you're trying to get into it. Yes, you can learn this. This is a learned skill, and it just takes patience and intentionality and purpose. And like we talked about last week with the stick control lessons, it's all in the repetition and the consistency here. And so start listening carefully to the simple things that you play. And this is why simplicity is key, because it's a lot easier to do this with simple things. You'll find that you're more able to subtly improvise and increase your coordination while you're at it. Because coordination is not just about playing a bunch of different notes. It's not about polyrhythms and syncopation. Yes, those things require coordination, and those things are fun and necessary to master the drums. But coordination is also being purposeful and intentional with what you're playing, because you're able to control every limb when playing something simple. And that's the step that too many drummers skip over and they just miss. We ignore that because we don't know to pay attention to it. And so I'm thankful that I had a teacher who brought this to light for me. And so my goal for you here is to get to where you're able to start paying attention to each limb, how hard you're hitting it, what you're playing, so that then you can make these subtle adjustments on the fly. Because think about it, in theory, if you can do this exercise, if you were playing along with me here and you were able to do this, well, that means you can improvise a kick drum pattern, right? That's awesome. You can improvise a kick drum pattern, you can change it on the fly. Then you can learn to do the same with your timekeeping hand, your ghosting and backbeat hand, and your left foot. It can get really crazy when you start doing unique things with your left foot like this. But all of this ties together the coordination with the listening, with the musicality, and that purposeful intention of playing from your ear and sounding like a professional, because this is something that any professional session drummer does really well, and you can begin tapping into this skill too. So question for you as you go: have you ever recorded yourself playing? I'd like to think that, of course you have at some point. You know, we all have smartphones, so there's no reason to have not recorded ourselves playing. It's 2024, and we've got all the technology we need to really get pretty good quality recordings and videos of ourselves playing. Have you ever recorded yourself playing? Do this and record yourself practicing this exercise, because this instant feedback will help you a ton. This is something I should have done more of in my early days. You know, when I was getting started on the drums in the late 2000s, I didn't have any good recording equipment. I didn't even have a very good camera. But you work with what you got. Now it's so easy because we've got smartphones. You can buy a GoPro for not much. And iPads do great video and audio. And so work with what you got. Make videos and recordings of yourself playing so that you can go back and listen and you can hear, oh, I don't actually sound the way I thought I sounded. Because what happens as you reap these benefits of the power of this exercise, as your ear is becoming more connected with your limbs, you get to a point where you listen back to a recording of yourself and you're like, oh yeah, that's exactly how I thought I sounded in the moment. Because in the moment, you're able to control your sound. You know how hard you're hitting things. You know how busy or not busy you're playing. So nothing catches you by surprise on the recording. You're like, yes, that's exactly what I sounded like. Whether it was good or bad, I knew that that's what I was sounding like. And so that's the really cool thing that happens when you do this a bunch. And that's a critical step to sounding awesome with a band, to playing musically, being in the moment, being present while you're playing, and recording. If you ever want to record with a band, you want to be a session drummer and do that kind of stuff, that whole world fascinates me. That skill set fascinates me. I've done a little bit of that. I would not call myself a session drummer, but I played on some records and played on a whole bunch of singles and EPs and stuff that friends and people I know have done. And it's so much fun, and it's one of those things that I could not have done well before this. Before getting to this point where I made those brain connections, I could not have recorded well at all. And so this was a critical step in getting there to where I know how I'm sounding and I know what I'm playing, and I'm playing it for this reason because it fits here. And so everything becomes purposeful. You start to sound like a professional drummer. So please record yourself. Your future self thanks you. All right, before you go, I want to help you build your coordination, get to where you're gaining superpowers on the drums because you can play what's in your head. All of this gets easier with coordination, and not only will this exercise help you, but that free e-guide I told you about earlier will help you. So go download it. It's totally free, no brainer. 30 days to 4-way rock coordination for the beginner drummer so that you can play what's in your head and learn new material faster and have more fun on the drums. So go grab that. As always, know that you can do this. Stay non-glamorous. I'll see you on the next lesson.